So, as I said earlier, to build a website, you basically Sita, yeah, kindly speak up. Sita,
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, actually some of us we are not close to our machine at the moment. So I want to ask if it's possible that you post a link that we can revisit the whole teaching.
yes, that's what we just did. Recording it so that after the session, those who are not able to join us, and then those who wouldn't be able to practice with us in real time can have something to fall back on. So, yes, that is being taken care of for you. Thank you very much. So, we need two things. We need the code editor and then the browser. So there are several code editors out there. We have Visual Studio Code, we have Sublime, we have Atom, Notepad++. We have a lot of them. For the purpose of this tutorial, we are going to be using Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code has proven to be the industry standard when it comes to software development. It's not the only one that is good. For example, if you do PHP, you probably might have heard of PHP Storm, which is very good for PHP programmers. But most people go with Visual Studio because it's lightweight. It has a lot of support, a lot of extensions which help to boost productivity while working. And so, for the purpose of this tutorial, we are going to be using Visual Studio Code. If you happen to have had some experience in web development, maybe you have used Sublime Text or you have used Atom, Notepad++, Vim, whatever it is, and that's what you're comfortable with, you're free to use that. And so let's proceed to download Visual Studio
Like,
Code. Just go to code.visualstudio. Yes, let me read that notification. New Vim is also an industry standard application. I agree with you. Let's download Visual Studio. So let's go to visual code.visualstudio.com. When you go to code.visualstudio.com, that's the official site for Visual Studio. So I'm posting the link in the chat. You can just click on it directly. And I think they have versions for all kinds of operating systems. So if you're on Linux, uh, you should have your version. If you're on Windows, if you're on Mac, you should have your version. So just come here. I think when you click down on the arrow, you should be able to download for other operating systems as well. So just click and download. I believe you guys are following.
yes, sir.
All right. So once you are done downloading, just go to your downloads folder. You should see the file. You should see the executable file over there. Just double click on it. I believe most of you would be able to install. But there is one thing which I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so let me just close my Visual Studio and try installing it again. So just go to accept the agreement. And then on this page, there are four things over here. I get energized. It says what? Add the open with code action to the Windows File Explorer context. Now, when I come over here, let's say I go into a folder and I say I right click, you see that an option to open that folder in Visual Studio Code has been added to the context menu, and it helps to be able to open your project folders a lot faster. And so make sure you have those parts, those checked. Add open with code. So just check all those four sites, and then you can continue. Just go next, next, next until you are done with the installation. When you are done, just put in the comments that you are done with your Visual Studio installation, and I'll know you are through. If you are currently following with your PC, if you're currently following with me, just let me know in the chat section. I want to know those an average number of people who are following. Okay, so Shamil is done installing Visual Studio. Thank you very much. That's great. If you're following, let me know. If you're actually coding, if you're going to be coding along, just let me know. Yeah, Awal Mahama, you can speak up. Okay, so I think we'll proceed from. If anybody is stuck, if there is a challenge you're facing, if you're not able to do something, just prompt me so we take care of that before we proceed. I don't want us to leave anybody behind. Okay, so Lanky. Right, so those of you who are done downloading your Visual Studio and you are done installing, uh, just go to your desktop, and then on your desktop, just create a folder. Right click, new, create a folder, and call it my website. Then open that folder. Now just right click on that folder and then go to open with code. So that folder, my website, is going to be our project folder, right? So when you right click and you open, you should have your Visual Studio Code open. Your Visual Studio Code is going to look a little bit different from mine. I'll explain to you why it is different. I am using an extension which is a theme called Synthwave. I like how it looks. It makes my workspace look that beautiful. Yours might look a little bit different, which is the default. It doesn't matter. Whatever theme it is that you're using, your code is going to work the same. And so don't worry. But if you really want to follow, you think you like my theme and you want to go with it, it's Synthwave 84. You can just click here and then you search for Synthwave 84 and you install and activate it and you can go. But let's not put focus on that. So right here, let me. I want to know at this point, is there anybody facing any challenge? Because I'll be assuming that everyone is following along, that everyone is okay. And so if you have a challenge, kindly prompt me. Yeah, so that we don't leave anybody behind. Yeah, Carl.
Um, I'm having slow network, so it's like my Visual Studio Code is not working.
You're having a slow network.
Yes, so but you can move ahead. It's just that I'll be lacking behind because
Okay.
if you start coding right now, I'll not be
All
at
right.
the
Oh,
same
sure.
point.
So right in our Visual Studio Code, you should see um, this particular icon over here. When you hover over it, it shows you see new file. Then you see new folder. Alice, you can speak.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Please, I want to know, it's a general question. Am I the only one who is experiencing slow in downloading the setup, or it's a general something?
Mostly it's the network. I think it's a network problem. It's a network issue. Visual Studio Code it's about 92 megabytes. If you have a relatively stable network, it shouldn't pose a challenge. Wow, yours is on 8.2 megabyte, and you have a very slow network. All right. A big mistake on my part is I should have alerted you so that we do this download before we begin. But when we start coding, if your Visual Studio Code is still not open, you're going to be using Notepad. Then when you're done, you just open it in Visual Studio Code. Everything is going to work fine for you, right? So don't worry. Uh, Joshua, you can speak, please. Joshua. All right, so we'll proceed. Now, inside our Visual Studio Code, let's just create a. Oh, sorry. Let's click on the new file icon. Let's create a file and call it index.html. And press enter. Now that particular file is opened in the workspace, so we can begin writing code. Those of you who are having challenges with your network, just create the My Folder website on the desktop or any place that you can easily locate it. Yeah, like if you already have a setup on your machine, you can install it. You don't really need to get it habit. So just install the previous setup you have, and then I think we are good to go. Just open that folder. Those of you who your Visual Studio Code is not loading yet, just open your folder, your project folder. Right click, go to new. Let me just delete this. So right click, go to new text document, delete whatever it is that is there. Then first of all, let me just address this. Most of you are not going to see that .txt extension. So just come to view on your machine, go to view, then you go to hidden file extension. When you check it, you should see the file extension over there. So when you create the new text file, go to new, the text document, just delete everything and then type index.html. That is for those of you who are going to be using Notepad, right, for now. But standard is we'll be going with Visual Studio Code. But I just want you guys to be able to follow along with us. So you just when you create the file with the .html ending, you would realize that it should be showing the icon for your default browser. Some of you are Chrome, some of you could be using Mozilla or Microsoft Edge, Brave, whatever browser which is set as default on your machine. You should see because when you double click this file and open it, it's going to open in your browser. I think. Let me bring this from the second screen here. Right. So whatever it is that I've opened, it's now showing in the browser over here. Let me bring this here. So it's showing in the browser over here. Those of you who are going to be on Notepad for now, just right click, you go to open with, and then you choose Notepad. I think you should see Notepad in the list when you go to choose another app. Wow. Yeah, so you should see Notepad, and then you open with it for now. And then whatever we are going to be doing in Visual Studio, you just follow along. The recording is going to be posted as well. So basically, that's what we have. I think I missed the folder. Okay, so the first thing we are going to be looking at is the basic HTML structure.
Ɛsɛ sɛ na ɔyɛ ano agye na makɔ.
So we are going to be looking at the basic HTML structure, and this is the form a basic HTML structure takes. We have what? Doc type. Then we have our HTML. And if you're following, if you're using Visual Studio, let me just use the boilerplate. This is basically how an HTML file looks. Let me zoom in a little bit. So at the very top here, we have the document type declaration from HTML5, which is the current version of HTML. At least your question is not clear. Kindly speak up so I see how best to assist you.
Okay, yes, please. I was asking, since the downloads is quite slow over here, I was asking, is there any possible way to use the? I can see an asset. We can access, I think, a few tools online, like without necessarily downloading the app. So I was
Yes, so
asking if it's like any help with that.
yeah, I think Visual Studio has online version. I think Visual Studio.dev.
Yeah. That's exactly where I am right now.
Yeah, so you're on Visual Studio.dev, which means you create your files directly. When you go to VSCode.dev, you're going to have a similar environment, which you can use to follow along with us, right? So you can just go to open a folder, then you create the folder on your desktop. For those of you who are having challenges, just create the folder on your desktop. Just create a folder on your desktop, then you just come over and then you select your project folder. You just select the folder and then you just accept it, and you are good to go, right? Now I'm not going to be working in the web version. If you think you have any challenges or you need help accessing that, just draw my attention so we attend to you, then we can continue. I think I have mute her, so we're safe now. Lanky, you said I should go back. What was your challenge specifically? Ebenezer, yeah, you can speak up. Even you have your hand raised, you can speak.
Challenge to download this thing.
Come again.
After the card issue,
Kindly
those who
raise.
are having I said those who are having challenges to download the VS Code,
Kindly raise your
like
voice
they
a
are
little
using.
bit so we can all hear you.
And what I'm saying is like those who are saying they are having challenge to download the VS Code, like they are using it to restart the card. That's how. That's what I'm trying to say. After
I
the class, they should let you know.
I can't hear you. I think you can type into the chat box so that I'll be able to assist you. Okay, so moving ahead, we have our basic HTML structure. Then we have the doc type declaration. So with the doc type declaration, it's a standardized procedure in HTML5, which shows that you have to declare the document type for the browser to know that okay, you are displaying an HTML file or whatever code that is written in this file is an HTML file. And then we also have the second one, which is what the HTML element. And basically, this is what the HTML element looks like. It looks like this, right? And it's has a particular attribute given to it, which is what the language attribute, and that means you're specifying the language in which the document is in. So for English, we usually go with EN. Sometimes you want to specify the dialect like N US N GB for US, and then British English. We can just leave it on English and move forward. Then also inside the HTML element, we have the head element. And what the head element does is it contains the metadata about your website. So whatever it is that is showing in the head element, when you open the website, you're not going to see it on your web page, but then it's there, it functions, it works right there. I hope you guys are getting me. Let's go ahead. Let me make a few changes on there and you see. So let me change the title to my first web page. Let me save. Let me come back to my browser and refresh. You realize that the title is not showing on the web page. However, the title is showing at the top, right? So those metadata they don't show directly on the web page. They show at the very top. And then we have other forms of metadata. We'll be looking at some of them later on. Today we are going to look at just the basic structure. So we have the next one is what we have um, a meta element, and the meta element has a title of what character set, and it is used to define the character set in which our document is in. It's UTF-8. There are other ones, but basically all that you are ever going to be using in your web development career is going to be UTF-8. So we are going to be leaving it over there. If you want to learn more about character sets, you can go to the MDN network I opened earlier, and then you're going to get a lot of information on what that actually means. The next one we have here is what the meta, and it has several attributes, which is what the name, viewport, content is what the width, and content equals width equals device width initial scale 1.0, which this meta attribute or this element is used to make our websites responsive. When I say responsive, it means uh, having your website display perfectly fine on all screen sizes. For example, when we have a website like Hodge Development, we open it on lowercase. So on the MDN network, you see it showing nicely on on the desktop. When we want to view it on a mobile device, it shrinks and everything looks good still. When you look here, everything looks okay. So we say a website like this is responsive. There are some websites, however, that are not responsive. When you open it on a desktop, it shows wide. When you open on a mobile, it shows with the same aspect ratio, squeezed, and it's difficult to navigate those websites. So that's the use of this meta tag. There are a lot of other meta tags which we are going to be looking at them. I did mention that we'll be treating SEO, so we'll look at most of them. Then we have the title, which shows at the top. Then the head element is closed. here. Then we have another element, which is what? The body element. And then the body element contains everything which is ever going to show on our website, right? So when I come into the body element and I write, I am teaching, and I refresh my page, you realize that what? It shows that what? I am teaching, right? So everything that is going to show on your website is supposed to go inside the body element. Lanky, you raised your hand. Okay, so the lang equals English. It basically defines the language in which we are going to be using for our website. I explained it. I don't know if you get it.
Okay, so please, with that one, can't I write the English in full?
No, we use the
Okay,
language code. So if it's French, it's FR. If it is Spanish, it is ES.
okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you're welcome. So one thing which we also have to pay attention to is that when we you realize that when I wrote I am teaching and I went onto the web page, I had to refresh it for the changes to appear, right? Now when we are working, we would want to be able to work efficiently with speed and accuracy. And so there are some extensions which we will be installing and it's going to help us do that. So first of all, just go to your extensions, open the sidebar, go to the extensions, and then search for Five Server. Those of you who are using Visual Studio, just search for Five Server, and there are a lot of them. There is a live server which by Rich Weekday. Most developers recommend that, but I have reasons for using the live server, and it's by Yannick. Right? Just go there and install the live server into bracket Five Server, and what that will do is it's going to open up a server on our PC. So anytime we make changes to the website, it's going to reflect automatically in the browser without us having to refresh. And so after you have done installing it, you should see the option at the bottom right of your Visual Studio, go live. Just click on it. So when it opens, it will open your browser automatically, right? Okay, so let me just close this one. So you would realize that it's open a local server and it's running your the local IP and then on the port 5500 with the index file which we have opened. Now you realize that I took off the slash index.html. You have slash index.html and it's going to display that file. But when I take off the index slash html and I open, my web page opens for me. The same page opens, the index file opens. And there is a reason why we give this particular file the name index. Anytime a website is accessed, the particular file has to be specified. If not, what happens is that the directory is going to be displayed and it's not safe. For example, let me open this in the browser once again, and this is what it's showing. Now, if I take the index.html out, you realize that it's displaying the directory. So every file which is inside my workspace is going to show, and it's not a good practice. And so when it comes to web development, you create a default file, which is always going to be the home page, so that anybody accessing the website and the person doesn't specify a particular web page, they will be redirected to the default, which is the index file, right? And so that's basically what that is. And so now let me just shift my Visual Studio Code to the side, And then my browser, let me remove this and let me take this to the side as well. So let me split this here. Great. I'm sure you guys are following along.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
All
Just
right.
that some of us don't have the machine, so we are just watching.
Okay. So when I modify the page and I say, okay, I am teaching HTML, I save, and you realize that the page is automatically refreshed. I don't have to go and click refresh for it to show. And so that is one advantage of uh, the the live server. You want to make sure that when you are creating a web page, you are working in a server environment because your website is not going to be hosted on your local PC. Users are not going to click on the files to access them. The website is going to be served to them on a server. And so when you are developing, you mimic the same environment so that if there are errors that will be showed when the website is displayed on the server, you'll see and then you take care of those particular errors before you ship your website or before you host your website for people to see. So far, is anybody having any challenge, any confusion? Great. So we'll proceed. And then here we are going to be looking at HTML. We are going to be looking at HTML elements. We are going to be looking at HTML elements. So we have several elements in HTML, and an element is made up of two tags. We have the opening tag and then the closing tag. Just like we have the body over here, we have what the body, and in HTML, a tag usually or a tag starts by what the less than sign, right? So when you go to you type less than, you type the name of the element, or let's say we have what body, then you type what the greater than sign, then you type the less than sign again forward slash, then the name of the element, the greater than sign to close the element. So this is the opening tag, and this is what the closing tag. That is usually the structure of an HTML element. There are some other HTML elements that do not have closing tags. We'll look at them. Yeah, Cal, you can speak up, please.
Um, Actually, my codes are not actually reflecting in the web browser. Like they're not. I don't know why.
Your codes are not reflecting.
Yes, you see, if the body like something like what you have typed, my first web page title.
Okay, so
I've done the same thing, but it's not.
you put up your title
Yes.
and it's not showing.
Yeah,
The
yes.
title is not going to show on the page, it's going to show on top of the browser. So you realize the page title will show over there,
No,
but
no, it's not still showing.
did you save?
Yeah, I see.
Are
It's not
you
coming.
are you using the live server?
Yes, please.
So when you save, your page should automatically refresh. If it doesn't refresh, just refresh it manually, and then I think the rest should happen automatically for you. Refresh and see if it's happening. Remember, after you install the
No, no,
live
it's coming.
server, you click
It's now,
on Go Live.
now it's coming. It's coming.
Come again?
Thank you. It's now coming. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. And so I was saying that there are some other HTML elements which do not have closing tags, like an input element, an image element. We'll look at all of them as we proceed. And so, first of all, let me put a little bit focus on the head element. The head element, as I said earlier, contains metadata about the website, but there are some other data. There's more elements which the head contains, such as what the link elements. It contains links, And links, we link up our web page to external resources. It could be a JavaScript file, it could be a CSS file. So we put those ones in the head element. The meta tags, the title, and all those ones, they go into the head element. Then when we come to the body, whatever it is that we want to show inside our web page goes to the body. And so we have several HTML tags like the heading, right? So to define heading, we use the H tag, H1. And when you type H1 and you say, okay, hello world, you say it's showing. This is a heading, and it's the biggest form of a heading which we can see in HTML. We have six heading levels in HTML, and we have H1, which is the biggest. We have H2, so we can say this is heading 1. Then we have H2. This is heading 2. We can have H3 and say what this is heading 3. We can have H4 and say this is heading 4. We can have H5 and say this is heading 5. And then the last of them is what? H6. This is what? Heading 6. And so you can see that my page is refreshed and we have them in that descending order of size. So each one is the biggest. Then after H1, we have H2, H3, H4, H5, and then H6. Oh, this is heading 6. And it shows over there. Aside that, we have some other elements in our HTML, such as the paragraph. And the paragraph tag in HTML is denoted by P. And one thing about Visual Studio Code is it has an inbuilt feature which helps to complete your code for you. So when I type P and I press enter, my paragraph element is created. And so I can just go and say what I can put in a paragraph over there. Now, if you're wondering how I did this, I think this feature should be inbuilt. If it's not, when you go to your extensions, you search for Lorem Ipsum, you'll be able to install an extension which will help you to generate dummy data. So as you are creating a website, you don't have to type all the sentences on your own. Just say this is a paragraph. A paragraph. So we have our paragraph written, but I decided to use a lorem ipsum so we can have a lot of text to display in our paragraph element, and that is it. So we have our H1, we have our paragraph, then we have some other elements which we'll be looking at as well. We have the HR, which brings a line, a horizontal line. So when I bring HR, you see that it brings a horizontal line in my web page. If we continue, we have another tag as what? The BR, which brings a line break. And so the BR tag doesn't show on a web page. What it does is what? It brings a line break. So if I pick this B tag, this element, and put it here, if I say, if you realize that what it brings a break in that paragraph, and if I bring another one, it brings another line break. So basically, that is what the B tag, the B arrow or the line break does. Anybody having any confusion so far?
Yeah, after typing the paragraph section, I didn't get my the one with I don't know. After typing the paragraph, you did something. Mine didn't come.
The closing tag didn't come.
Yeah, I think I'll have to type it myself.
Yeah, so if you don't have it, and if as a beginner, it's quite advisable that you type them yourself so
Okay.
that you get to learn the syntax pretty much very well.
Okay.
We are going to be we'll continue and we'll be looking at other elements like the address element. So when we are looking at the address element, it's somebody wants to say something. Shamil,
Hello.
yeah.
I copied my sample text and then I pasted it in the paragraph, the paragraph element,
Yeah,
and then it went beyond the weight of the Visual Code, Visual Studio Code.
it
So I
went
wanted to
beyond.
know if there is,
Okay,
yeah,
so
if
there
there
is
is a way
some.
we can like on that.
Yeah, so there is something called line wrapping. So when you have your Visual Studio open, just go to View, and at the very down you have what word wrap.
Okay,
So when it's off, you realize that the code just keeps going.
yeah,
But you want to have, you can just press Alt and Z on Windows. If you're on Mac or any other operating system, it may be a little bit different. So it just cuts off for you. So you have
all right,
just
thank you.
wrapping for you. Okay, so we can continue from here. I was saying that we will look at. Let me make reference to the Mozilla Developer Network, and then will look at some other attributes, some other elements. For example, we let me bring this over here on the Mozilla Developer Network. Let me look here. So they have the main root, which is the main HTML element, which we looked at it. We have the base, and we usually don't use the base because it's like the default address. So in a web page, maybe you want to specify a default URL. When you specify the URL, any subsequent links which you want to put in the page, you just skip the default. For example, we can say we have a base, then we say what https slash octaskills.com, right? So we have this as what the base URL. Then when we want to link, we just say what slash home dot html, and it's going to pick the base URL directly. But it's usually not done because if you're working if you're working in your HTML and you don't specify the base URL, it defaults to your root directory, right? So if I take this out and I do this, let me go back to, let me say link, save this. So when I click, you realize that what it shows the default address, the address that is showing in my address bar. It just goes there. Sorry, it goes there and then adds the. If you look at the bottom left corner of my screen, you'll see the link showing there. So it adds the home.html to it. So there is no need to specify the base element. Then another thing which, let me get back to the, all right. So we have the head element which we looked at, and then we also have the link element which is used to link to external resources. We have the meta tag which contains information about the web page. We'll be looking extensively at them later on. Shamil,
Please, I didn't get the explanation you gave to the link again,
to the,
to the base element link.
okay. So let me show you what happens over here. So this is what The base element specify the base URL to use for all relative URLs in a document. There can be only one base element in a document. A document-based URL can be accessed by scripts with the node.base URI. If the document has no base element, the base URI defaults to location.ref. Now this is JavaScript something over here, and what it says is that the base element, if you're building a web page, for example, you are in a school, right? And then somebody tells you that go to class 4 and go and pick something there. You know that you are going to that same school, right? You don't have to say which school. And so when you specify the base element and you are calling a URL, you just continue with what the continuation of that URL. For example, if you are on the home page and you want to go to the about page, you just go to what? The about. You go to about.html and then it's going to follow up from what the base URL and go there. When it's not specified, it goes to the default link or the default page where we are, or our root directory. I don't know if you understand what I am explaining at this moment.
Yeah, I get it.
Great. So we have the head, um, then the title element, which shows over here in your browser. We have the body, and then we have the address element, which it's a semantic element for writing addresses. So when you want to write an address, you're writing an address. You have the address link, so you say uh, Medina Zongo Junction. Then you bring your line break, Accra, Ghana. Then West Africa. Now you realize that the browser automatically formats because it knows that what this is an address. Yeah. Somebody has a hand raised.
So I wanted to find out what are the elements that don't have closing tags?
Come again.
What are the elements that don't have closing tags? Like
So some
some of
of
them.
the elements that don't have closing tags, one of them is the link element, which goes into the header. For example, when you want to add a link, you just go straight. You realize that it's not having a closing tag like this. There is nothing like this for the link element. So that's one of them. Then we also have another one like the H arrow. You realize the H arrow doesn't have a closing tag. The B arrow, the line break, also doesn't have a closing tag. We have input elements when you have images as well. Image also doesn't have a closing tag. We will be looking at them today. I want us to look at the raw HTML structure, and then we'll proceed to um, building projects, and then we'll see the use case for each of of them. Um, I believe I've answered your question. If not, let me know.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else having any other question? So we also have the article, which is used for sectioning. Most people you go with divs, and div is basically a container. When you want to create a container which is going to contain other elements, we usually go with the div, and it's going to show everything is going to show. However, we will be using semantic elements, and so we use divs only when it's very necessary. We have an article, right? So let's say we come onto our web page, we have what our article, and then we are going to have whatever content we want to have in our article. So we can have an H1, and sorry, let me, for your information, an H1 it's supposed to appear only once on a web page, and so let me just put an H3. This is what, this is a title. Then we can have a paragraph and put that in there. Then you realize that we have our title, and then our paragraph showing for us. There are a lot more elements which we'll be looking at. We are going to discover a lot more of them when we are building projects, when we are learning to use them. Yeah, Janet, you can ask your question. Janet,
Hello.
yeah.
Yeah, please, the meaning of the article element.
Okay, so it says what? It represents a self-contained composition of a document, page, or application. If we want to have a block of content, you usually put it in what? In an article, right?
Is it the same as a div?
All right, so you can use it in place of a div. However, it is recommended to use an article because a div has no semantic meaning. When you use an article, it states for a purpose that this is what is it is for. When we are using an article over here, you can change it and use a div, and everything is going to work well. Now, one thing about this is when anybody opens up your web page, whatever it is that is showing over there, it's going to look the same. For somebody to know that okay, this person is using a div or an article element, unless the person checks the source code, and nobody's coming onto your website to use it and would want to go and check your source code and know what you're using. So you can use a div, it will work right, but for accessibility sake, it is recommended that you go with the semantic elements.
Okay. So can we use the article elements multiple times or several times
Yes, it can be used several
on your web
times.
page?
Yes, it can be
Oh,
used several times on a web page. And when we begin building projects, you'll see the best way to use most of these elements.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, Enoch, you can speak. Enoch. Enoch. All right, so we are going to we'll continue, and we're going to be looking at we saw headings, we saw paragraphs, we saw line breaks, we saw the horizontal rule, and then another thing in web development or in HTML is called white space, and white space is basically the space between the text. I hope you're getting it. And so when I open my document, I can press the enter several times and save. But you realize that it's not reflecting on the web page. Let me refresh it for you to see. It's not reflecting on the web page. And basically, what this is what we call the white space. It's like excess space, which the browser ignores. Right? The browser ignores all of this white space and shows only one. So when you bring two, it's not going to show. If you bring, then it's not going to show. You realize that when I save my document, it automatically goes back. When I bring in the space and I save it, automatically go back. It goes back because I'm using an extension which will help to format my code for me. Formatting code means positioning the elements in the right way so that when you look at your code, it's easier to understand. You know what is under what. We have parent elements and we have child elements, right? And so whatever we have over here, you see that we have what, a div, and then the div over here, we can say it's a parent element, right? The p, or the paragraph, is a child of this div. The h3 is a child of this div. The h3 and the paragraph are siblings. I'm hoping you guys understand the analogy over here, because we have the div wrapping around both of these. H3 is inside the div, so it becomes a child of the div. The paragraph is also inside the div, it's a child of the div. But then the paragraph and then the H3 are siblings. And then the div is also what? A child of the body element. I hope you guys are getting it. The div is also a child of the body element. So P becomes a grandchild of what? Of the body element. We are going to be looking a lot more at the child and parent and siblings when we are doing CSS, looking at selectors. Another thing we are going to be looking at is text formatting. And so when you have your paragraph text, when you have a paragraph text, you can actually format your text. For example, if I want this lorem ipsum to appear big, I can just use what? The B tag. Uh, I can use the B tag, and when I save, you realize that what, it's showing bold. And so in HTML, when you want to bold in something, you use what, the B tag to bold in it. Another one which you can use is what, the strong element. So when you have the strong element, anything which is in the strong element will also appear bold, right? So we use the B element and then the strong element to make our text bold. We also have what, the small element, and anything which you put in the small element becomes extra small. For example, let me zoom in. You realize that what, I'm putting this text in the, let me put something longer so you can see, in the small element. And when you look over here, you realize that that one looks a little smaller than the rest of the text over there. So that's what the small element does. We also have italics. When you want to make a text appear in italics, you use what, the em, or the emphasis, right? So when you put a piece of text inside the em element, it shows as what, italics. So that's how you make your text italics in HTML. Then we also have the underline, and basically we underline text by using the u element. You put your u element over there. uh, Let me put a few line breaks so I can. So you realize that the content which is wrapped inside the U element is underlined uh, over here. There are a lot more of these elements. We'll discover them. We'll learn a lot more of them as we go along. Anybody having a question? Anything to clarify? Great. So we are going to look at attributes, right? And so when we pick an HTML element has several attributes, and the attributes are specified within the opening tag of the element, right? For example, We'll be looking at the image elements later on, but let me just use it to show something. For example, we have what image, right? And when you have the image element over here, we specify a source that is going to be the location of that particular image. And so let me just go on to my browser. Let me download an image. Let me say picture. Let me just download a random picture. This looks beautiful. Let me just save it. So locating my desktop, then going into my folder, right? Then I'm pasting it over there, right? So when I come here and I say, okay, so image source, I can type what's three. All right, so that's the title of that. That's the file name over there. Now I've specified the source. So when I save, you realize that what the image is showing, and it's showing very big over here because it's actually going to display in its original size. Now the image takes another attribute. The image element takes another attribute called what? The alt attribute. And the alt attribute is like an alternative text which shows. Suppose you have an image and then something happens, that image is missing. You show an alt attribute which helps to it displays for the user to know that okay, it displays for the user to know that okay, this is the image that is supposed to be here, right? So we can say picture of a tree at what sunset, and I have saved it. Right now, when I come onto the web page, the alt attribute is not showing because my image is what is showing. Suppose I entered the wrong file name. Let me just make this an F, right? You realize that oh, this is not supposed to happen. Let me add a few more line. Let me bring the line breaks over here because I'm recording this, but this widget is showing over here. So sorry for that. So let me bring this so I can. You realize that what because I've spelled the file name, I have put the wrong file name over here. The image is not showing, and so the alt attribute will show. Moreover, the alt attribute is necessary to make sure that we create web pages that are accessible to all users, because there are blind people who use websites, right? And so when that blind person is on the website, they use a screen reader which scrolls through the website and reads the text. And so the blind person is not going to see your image. The screen reader will read the alt text for the user to know that okay, this is what's supposed to be displayed over here. And so that's the purpose of the alt attribute in HTML. Another attribute which the image element can take is what the width. And so when we are putting in when we are adding an image, you can say okay, you want to specify a size of 250 pixels. Let's say 250 pixels. Let me change this back. And so you realize that after I have specified the width, now the image what tends to that particular size which I have specified in my HTML file. Then you can add the height as well. Now, when you don't add the height, the image is going to scale down perfectly. It's going to scale down, maintaining the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is basically the size of the width to the size of the height. So let me come into my file directory over here. You realize that the image is showing over there. So when I click on the image, it's going to open in VS Code. And VS Code at the bottom, VS Code will give me the whole size of that image, which is 1280 pixels by 797 pixels. So let me scale down this image a little bit so that we can work with it without specifying the width. And resize this to 30%. Save. And you realize that VS Code is reflecting the actual size of the image. And so over here, if I don't specify, suppose I don't specify the size of the image, it's going to show in full size, which is what I think that was around 300 pixels in size. Oh, sorry guys, I unfortunately I exited the meeting. Sorry. Let me get back to what I was what I was doing. Can you guys see my screen again?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. Isaac, you raised the hand. Okay, so image size, which by default is 384 by 239 pixels, is showing over there. And so when we come to our HTML file, okay, so I have an error in my HTML. When we come here, then we specify the width and we say 500 pixels. You realize that the size of the image increases to the specified size. Then we can also continue and specify what? The height, right? So we can specify the height to, let's say, 100 pixels. And so look at what happened. Because we have given it a fixed width and then a fixed height, it's going to shrink according to what? The sizes we have specified. If we specify only one of those sizes, it's going to scale down proportionally. So we have everything showing as it is. I hope you guys understand the attributes I'm talking about over here. We'll proceed and look at other things. Next thing I would want us to look at is HTML entities. Before I proceed with HTML entities, I would like to see some of your screens. Let me see what you're getting through so far. Okay, so let's just proceed. We're going to be looking at HTML entities, and HTML entities are special characters which we can type them directly to show on the HTML page. For example, when you pick this less than sign, you realize that the less than sign is used in declaring an element. Isaac,
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
we can hear you.
Yeah, I realized that the image tag does not have a closing tag. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes, the image doesn't have a closing tag, and so that's basically how that's one of the tags that are self-closing. There are no closing tags for them.
Okay, but I can see like you are not also closing
Come again?
it. Like I've realized you are not also closing it.
Yes, you don't close it. That's
Like,
how it's supposed to be.
oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, the image tag doesn't have a closing tag. It's not supposed to have a closing tag. And so when you bring a closing tag, you're going to get an error. You realize that it's underlined and it says what tag must be paired, not start tag. So I can actually bring a slash over here. Tag must be paired, no start tag. So the image element doesn't have what? A starting or uh, a closing tag. Any attribute that has to be specified within the image element is it goes straight into the opening tag, and that's it for that. Janet?
Yes, sir. Please, with the attributes,
Yeah.
you made mention of only one, the image attribute. Is there more that we are supposed to
Yes,
know,
we
or we
have
are going to
we
talk
have
about it later?
we have lots of attributes, and we are going to be finding out all of most of them as we build projects. Let me pick up the paragraph attribute right now, and we have an attribute called what? Class. So we have the class attribute, we have the ID attribute, we have the style attribute, and the class is usually a selector. We use it to identify items and we style them. We can also reference. But Janet, kindly mute your mic. I'm hearing myself speak. All right, thank you. We also use the class to reference the elements maybe when we are working in CSS or when we are working in JavaScript. Are you getting it? For example, let me go to the top and let me create a style sheet. Let me name it style.css. So the href is also an element which it specifies a source for a particular element because we are linking to an element. And what relation is this element? Let me put a little focus on the link element and its attributes. When we look at this link element, it has what the real attribute or what relation. And when I hover over it, this is what this attribute names a relationship of the linked document to the current document. So we are linking to a particular document. How is that document relating to how is that document relating? I've made some errors in my code. Let me just correct it. Right. You are linking an element to this particular document. So the question is, how is that element related to this document? It is a style sheet. And so we specify the relationship over here. Now, where is that file that you are linking? And that file is what? The style.css. Are you getting it? So let me come here into the folder structure. Then let me create a file, then call it style dot what? CSS. Right. So now I've specified that. Let me go back to my paragraph file and give it a class of let me give it a class of description, right? And then let me give it an ID of detail, for example. And then let me not specify the style for now, because the style we have when we are working on styles, we'll look at the style attribute over here because we have different types of styling. Then I say, okay, well, this is a paragraph. It contains some information about what we are doing, right? So that's a paragraph showing over here. And so in my CSS file, I can just select the this paragraph by the class I have given to it. And so I can just say dot description, and then I can say color red and save. And you realize that uh, the text changes to red because the class here is what description, and I have specified that particular class over here. And so whatever I've done to it is going to affect it. Excuse me, I'll be with you guys in a moment. Junior, I think he stepped out. Yes. I can kindly call him. Okay, very sorry. All right, sorry guys. So because I use the class to select it. Now you can also use the ID, and when you use the ID, you can say hashtag detail. That was what we did, right? Detail. Then I can say font size 2 rem, and it's going to increase the size, right? So we have different attributes and different uses. I did mention that we'll be building projects, and so while we are building projects, we'll begin to see um, all of these things. I can't mention all of them offhand at once, but once we are using those things, we will see all of them and we'll know what they are used for. I believe I've answered your question, Janet. We have,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
you're welcome. Also, we have another element. Uh, we have another attribute called the title attribute. And the title attribute works like a tooltip. So this is detail. And when I hover over my text, you realize what the title is showing over there. It's showing, I believe you guys can see this is detail. And so that's what the title attribute does. There are lots of attributes. Let me visit the Mozilla Developer Network, and then let's look at HTML attributes and see which of them we can look at. Okay, so all right, so we have an attribute like what they accept, and it's actually an attribute for form elements. We'll be looking at that one later. Then the accept the character sets, we'll be looking at that later as well. We have the access key, we have action, we have the asynchronous attribute, which is for JavaScript. We have auto capitalize, which we can use for form elements as well. We have lots of them. For let me look at a few which we can actually use over here. We have the class which we just saw. We have the call for text area. I want some of them are specific to a particular element, and I want us to look at those elements on their own. For example, when we are looking at forms, I want us to look at a form entirely, And so that's why I'm skipping some of these things. We'll be looking at them on its own. We have a lot of them. So let's just move on to the next in which I have planned, which is the HTML entities. And as I was saying, I hope nobody is confused till this point. If there is any confusion, kindly hit me up. Let me know so we fix it and we can keep going. I was saying that HTML entities are special characters which are we can't type directly into our code even when we want it to show. For example, suppose you want to write something like let me open Microsoft Word, and maybe you want to write a math equation, maybe like what, 5 less than 2. Now, if you want this to appear on your web page, let's see what happens. Let's put this here, and we are getting an error, right? Because what, special characters must be escaped. Are you getting it? And so when we want to bring a less than into we want to introduce a less than into our HTML page, what we have to do is what, we use the special characters, right? And so we have a list of special characters. So I can bring my p element and say 5. And so if I want to bring the less than, I say what, I bring the ampersand. Then and this is what is going to show the less than sign. Let me bring this here. So you realize that what the less than sign is showing now, because by default we use the less than sign in specifying what, um, elements, or in creating elements, in defining elements. And so when you bring it here, the browser is going to see it as what, you are about to define another element. Hence, there is the need for those special characters. And so when you want to bring a greater than sign, you have what, the amper sign. Then you have GT, you bring a semicolon to bring a greater sign. And in Visual Studio, when you press the amper sign, it's going to give you a list of all of them. For example, you type G, there are lots of special characters which are going to show. Once again, you can get a list of them or most of them on the Mozilla Developer Network. All the things which I am saying, making reference to them, I'll post the links in the group so that you can get there and read extensively on them. Yeah, Janet, you raised your hand again.
Please, which key gave you the ampersand?
Oh, Shift and 7.
Shift and 7.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
So basically, that's what HTML entities are. There are a whole lot of them. When you want to maybe have a copyright sign, for example, you want to say copyright 2024. Most people do this. They bring the bracket, they bring the C, and this is how it's going to show on your website. Instead, you bring what? The ampersand, and you write copy, and then you have your copyright symbol showing over there for you. Then also, I did mention of white space earlier, and I did something where I brought a lot of space in my paragraph. I save it and it's not showing. Now, when I save, it's automatically formatted because I am using Prettier. So let me just deactivate my Prettier and show you what that does exactly. So Prettier is disabled, and now I have my document. Let me bring this back. Let me send this here. Let me send this here. Let me send this back here. Now you realize that what the elements are scattered around on the page, right? Which doesn't look that great. When I save them, it goes back. Oh, I thought I deactivated. Okay, I have to reload the web page for it to work. My workspace, sorry. Right. So now Prettier is totally deactivated, and so I can just scatter my code around. Wait, I think I have an auto formatting set. So format and save, format and paste. All right. So all right, great. So by default, maybe you have your document scattered. You have elements scattered around in your document, right? I can bring a whole lot of space over here, save, and the space is showing, right? Now, when I go onto the website, it's not affecting the website. Nothing happens, nothing shows to go wrong on the website, right? But as the developer, when you open this page, when you open your document, it's going to be confusing to work on. And so it's very necessary to format your document, right? And so you just right click and then you format your document. VS Code has that inbuilt feature to format your document for you. However, I use Prettier. Most people use Prettier as well because it adds a little touch as you save it formats, and also it helps to change some of your characters when you type them wrong. I'll show you an example. So I'm going to re-enable my my Prettier, and I think let me format and paste, format and save. All right, I'm good to go. So we realize that there is enough space over here, but it's not showing. So what would you do if you want to bring extra space? You actually want the extra space to show in your code. Then we have another HTML entity which you can use to increase white space, which is what? NBSP, right? So this particular paragraph which I have here, let me save. Okay, so because I restarted my workspace, my live server went off, so I have to start it again. So let me go live again. Great. So you realize that after I brought NBSP twice, it's bringing what? An extra space. If I should bring it again, it's going to keep increasing the space. And so if you want the space to show, you use the special characters. So that's also another HTML special character. So far, we've looked at the basics of HTML. We've looked at the file structure, and then great. So something happened right now. One of the reasons we like to use Prettier is whenever you did something wrong, Prettier will automatically correct it. So for elements that are self-closing, you can bring the forward slash over here. When you look at the image tab, where did I bring the image? All right, so there's this forward slash over here, which shows that okay, it's a self-closing element. I didn't bring this, but when I did the formatting, it showed automatically. So that was done by the Prettier. If you don't bring it, your code is still going to function very well. and that is it. Another thing which, um, okay, Isaac, I think you can talk, Isaac. Isaac, Janet.
Yeah, yes, sir. Please, you were about to talk about HTML entities before I asked my question
Yeah, so the HTML
about
entities.
the attributes.
Yeah, so that's what we did. That's the ampersand. When you bring the
Okay.
ampersand and the NDSP to bring an extra space with the end copy, those are what we call the HTML entities. And so when you get onto the MDN network, you can read extensively and look and see a whole lot more of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone having questions? Any other questions? Yeah, Isaac, you can speak. Isaac. All right. So we are pretty much done for the day. It's been 2 hours, and I believe it's been well spent. I would like to get feedback from you guys. Uh, but yeah, Janet, you have a question?
Yes, please. Please, after installing the Prettier, do you have to do something else like
Yes, for
uh
the Prettier to begin to
oh
work, you go to settings. So, in short, just go to settings and then just search for formatting because VS Code has an inbuilt formatter, right? So, when you come to editor, when you search for formatting, you see default formatter. So, you click and then you choose a default formatter for,
hey please slow down. I should go to settings.
yes, go to settings. You click on
Okay.
the gear icon, you go to settings, and then in the you should see a search bar at the top. Just search for format.
Okay.
Yeah, when you search it, you should see default formatter. Then you can just click and then select Prettier. Are you okay now?
No, please.
No, you still have a problem.
Yes.
Okay, so search for Prettier,
Um
click on it, and you should. But have you seen the Prettier option in the settings?
yeah, yes, I've seen yes.
You've seen Prettier and you've selected it.
I've seen it. Yes.
Okay, so just see when you select it, it's automatically saved. You can just uh, close your settings, and then when you save, it should happen. If it doesn't happen, just close the VS Code and open it again, and you should be good to go.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So so far, anybody having any questions? All right, no questions. So we're pretty much done for the day. Uh, Tomorrow is Wednesday, and we wouldn't be having a session because I did mention that our sessions were going to be for Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So tomorrow we are not going to be having a session, but then whatever we've done so far, you can begin doing something. So I'm actually giving you an assignment. Create a web page, have a title, have 5 separate paragraphs on the web page, and then with each paragraph should have an image, and each paragraph and image should be separated by what? A line break. I get on it. We we saw we looked at the heading elements. So you create an HTML page, you have your heading, then you have an article tag, and each article tag should have an image in it, and then a paragraph, and then a line break, the horizontal rule. After that, you should have what, five different paragraphs with the same structure. And then when we meet on Thursday, I'll be checking. Tomorrow, you guys should send it to me. I'll check it on Thursdays. No, when we meet on Thursday, you guys are going to share your screen and I'll see what you've done so far. And then we'll proceed to look at the rest of what I have planned. Then after that, we'll dive into CSS. HTML is pretty much simple. It may look a little bit confusing because we are now learning most of the things one after the other. Don't worry, you will be able to share your screens. I will show you how to share your screens, uh, when it's time to. So not now. I don't. I'm pretty sure you guys understand the assignment I'm giving. So yeah, Ebenezer.
Please, the assignment, the question again.
Okay,
I
so
didn't hear you well,
I'll type. I'll put the assignment into the group so that
okay.
you guys can have reference to it, and then you do it on Thursday before we proceed. I'll check a few of your groups. Yes, you just put dummy text for the paragraph. You don't have to put real thing. Just put dummy text for the paragraph, and we're good to go. And basically, that is it for it. If there are no further questions, if anybody has a, Ebenezer, your hand is still up. Okay, so I think that's all we've got for now. When we come back on Thursday, we are going to be looking at links. We are going to we've already looked at images, so we wouldn't be looking at images, but then we'll be looking at links, and then we'll be putting focus on what semantic elements are. Then we'll proceed to start working with tables. And then when we are done working with tables, we'll begin to work on forms. We'll build a few more projects and then we'll be through with it for HTML. Then hopefully next week we'll start with CSS. Thank you all very much for joining. Shamil, I saw you raised your hand earlier. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that you it will be better you put the this in the assignment on the
Yes,
page.
I'll put the assignments in the group. So thank you very much for that. And I would say thank you all for today's session and have a good evening, you all. I'll be posting the link on YouTube and the recorded session on YouTube and share the link with you guys later. Have a good night, you all.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.